All right, let's dive into a pretty wild theory today. We're going to explore this incredible hidden line connecting two places you'd probably never think to put together: the ancient Vedic wisdom of India and the modern-day happiness of the Nordic countries. It's a journey that covers thousands of years and thousands of miles, and it's like we're piecing together a giant historical puzzle. So let's just start with the big central question. We all hear about how the Nordic countries are consistently ranked as the happiest on Earth, right? But what if the philosophical bedrock of their society, the very thing that makes them so content, didn't actually start in those snowy fjords, but way back in the ancient texts of India? It's a bold claim, for sure. So let's see where the evidence takes us. So, to really get into this, we have to look at how this historical puzzle is framed. It's this really compelling idea that pieces of wisdom got scattered all over the globe after one single pivotal moment in ancient history. So the theory goes something like this. After that huge, epic war described in the Mahabharata, the knowledge wasn't lost. It was scattered. You can almost picture it like a beautiful vase that shattered, and the pieces of this one coherent wisdom ended up in different cultures all over the world. And the really interesting part is, if you look closely at the Nordic piece and the Vedic piece, well, they seem to fit together almost perfectly. Okay, so the first and maybe most concrete puzzle piece we have is language itself. You know, language is like cultural DNA. It carries memories and connections across generations. And the links we see here are, well, they're pretty startling. I mean, just look at this. Take some of the most basic words we have, words for family. In Sanskrit, you've got pitsar, matsar, and dahit. Then you look at Old Norse, and you have father, mor, and daughter. Come on, those aren't just random coincidences. They're like linguistic mirrors, reflecting a shared ancestral language. It's a huge clue that these cultures were, at some point, deeply connected. All right, so let's move from words to entire worlds, the worlds of mythology. If language is a mirror, then myths are kind of like the soul of a culture. And this is where the parallels get even more profound, suggesting a shared way of seeing the entire cosmos. And these echoes are just undeniable. In Norse mythology, the god Odin steals divine mead while on an eagle's back. In the Vedas, the god Indra does the exact same thing with the sacred drink Soma. The Norse world is created from the body of a sacrificed giant Ymir. The Vedic cosmos from the cosmic being Purusha. From world-ending prophecies like Ragnarok and the Kali Yuga to believing in reincarnation, it's like these stories are all singing from the same hymn sheet. Now, let's talk about a symbol that is absolutely central to both cultures, the sacred cow. And this is so much more than just an animal. In both traditions, the cow represents prosperity, generosity, and the entire cycle of life and nourishment. You can see it right here. In the Vedic tradition, the cow's milk is used for sacred rituals. In Norse myth, the cosmic cow, Audumbla, literally licks the very first being into existence. Even the languages prove the link. The Sanskrit word for generosity, Audarya, is tied to the cow, while the very first Norse rune, Fehu, means both cow and wealth. The message in both cultures is identical. True prosperity comes from being in harmony with nature. Let's look at another huge symbol, the world tree. In Norse mythology, you have Yggdrasil. This is the absolute center of the cosmos, the axis connecting all the different realms. And it's here that the head god Odin makes this incredible sacrifice. He hangs himself from its branches just to gain ultimate wisdom. And then you jump over to the Vedic tradition, and you find the Ashvatha tree, also seen as this cosmic tree representing all of existence. And, of course, it's under this very tree that the Buddha is said to have attained enlightenment. So you have two different continents, two different traditions, but the exact same powerful idea. The tree is the center of existence, and real wisdom comes from connecting to it. Okay, so we've seen the shared language, the myths, the symbols. It's all there. But how does this all translate into a real philosophy for living? Well, that brings us to the next piece of this puzzle. A shared idea of destiny. In Indian philosophy, Krishna's peacock feather is this really powerful symbol. It represents a core teaching that true happiness doesn't come from fighting your destiny, but from surrendering to it. The idea is to remain light, not weighed down by ego, and to just flow with the currents of life. Just like a feather floating on the wind. And if that philosophy sounds a little familiar, it might be because it was captured absolutely perfectly in a movie we all know and love. Yep, that floating feather and Forrest Gump. It's a perfect modern symbol for this ancient Vedic concept of accepting life's totally unpredictable path with grace and simplicity. And the journey of this idea actually came full circle. When the story was adapted in India as Laal Singh Chaddha, the film consciously reconnected that floating feather to its philosophical roots right there in Indian thought. It just goes to show you how universal and timeless this wisdom really is. So, what does all this mean for us today? Why does a possible link between ancient India and modern Scandinavia even matter? Well, in this last part, we're going to tie all these threads together and try to find an answer. When you really look at the cultural DNA of Nordic societies today, you find this special blend of core values that really fuels their well-being. Things like a deep respect for nature, an incredibly high degree of trust in the community, and the sort of cultural acceptance of fate. And according to this theory, these aren't new ideas at all. They are the living legacy of the exact same principles we've traced all the way back to their Vedic roots. So what this all leads to is the idea that the high levels of trust and well-being you see in the Nordic countries, that's not some modern political accident. Instead, it's the result of preserving an ancient wisdom, a wisdom that emphasizes harmony, community, and surrendering to the flow of life. And that really just leaves us with this powerful thought. Whether it was expressed through Sanskrit or Old Norse, through myths about Odin or stories of Krishna, the search for a meaningful, happy life seems to follow a very similar path. Maybe these ancient connections are just showing us that deep down there really is one shared human truth. Thanks for joining us.